There's a lot of discussion currently within, I think it's 22 different states and several different cities that have already passed some legislation around not asking about salary histories or salary information as part of interview processes. And one of the reasons that they're giving for wanting to change this is to minimize the gender pay gap. And it's a really nice idea, and it's totally not going to work. Here's why. We can go through the whole interview process and we can get down and you can make me an offer, but there's nothing that's going to stop me from negotiating with you at the end. And here's the real problem. Women don't tend to negotiate. There was a study that was done out of Harvard a few years ago that found that only 7% of women and 57% of men would negotiate. And this was at the beginning of their careers. The difference was about a 7.5% increase for both men and women that negotiated their salaries. Well, over the course of your career, you're going to see that gap widen. And there's no amount of not talking about salary that's going to fix that when I can negotiate at any point in time at different levels of my career for more money. So the real problem is this. Women in general just don't negotiate as much as men. Two, that women feel more anxiety when they negotiate, so they negotiate less. They negotiate less vigorously in those negotiations. And lastly, women tend to perceive fewer situations as negotiable, where men perceive more situations as negotiable. So you've got another problem, which is a societal issue. And here's what this stems from, and this is what most people don't understand. When you get into a negotiation, you're sort of looking out for yourself. That's self-preservation, if you will. And that self-preservation is a masculine characteristic exhibited in what's referred to as dominance. If you've got to look out for yourself, and that's a masculine characteristic, to ask women to negotiate is sort of to fight against what is not a normal trait. Dominance is not a normal trait for women. So let's say that a woman tries to overcome this deficiency and tries to present as more masculine. I mean, and all of us, men and women have both masculine and feminine traits that we exhibit at different times to serve different purposes. We all do. That's how people are. But in this particular situation where we're negotiating, we're going to demonstrate this masculine trait. Now here's what happens. And we're perceived the same way by both men and women. So women demonstrate this masculine characteristic, this dominance, to get a better offer. So they're perceived as more technically competent. But because they're demonstrating a masculine trait, which sort of flies in the face of them being female, and they're demonstrating something that is not viewed as sort of naturally feminine, they're viewed as more societally incompetent, which makes them sort of less likable, which also makes them less hireable. So if I want to negotiate for myself and I'm a woman, I kind of get it coming and going. I can't really do it and be perceived as feminine, and if I do it and I'm perceived as feminine, while I might be more likable, I'm going to be perceived as less technically competent to do my job. So how do you win in that situation? Well, interestingly enough, studies have found that a woman who is perceived as both warm and competent comes across as very likable and non-threatening, which can serve women really well in a negotiation. If you negotiate too aggressively, you're going to be perceived as lacking feminine characteristics socially. And both men and women are sort of guilty of that. So women are going to get punished for negotiating for themselves, and they're going to regret, in many instances, not negotiating for themselves when they know that they probably should. And that is exhibited by actress Jennifer Lawrence, who in coming out of the movie American Hustle, said this, that she didn't negotiate as well as her male counterparts for some of the back-end money. And she said, "I failed as a negotiator because I gave up early. I didn't want to keep fighting over millions of dollars that, frankly, due to 2 franchises, I don't need. But if I'm honest with myself, I'd be lying if I didn't say there was an element of wanting to be liked that influenced my decision to close the deal without a real fight. I didn't want to seem difficult or spoiled," which is exactly something that you would expect based on all of the research that's out there that says that the real struggle for women is trying to look out for themselves and at the same time be likable. And oftentimes those two things just don't fit together. And that's a real problem for women when they're trying to negotiate the best deal that they can get in an offer situation.
Hey, Ash.
Hey,
You
Ash,
sleepy?
you awake now? Hey, give me 5.